So have we met before, Travis?
No, this is my first time.
Let's see. So how is it that you find yourself here today, Travis?
I was going to retreats with Francis Lucille,
Uh-huh.
and there's some people in LA that go there. So just from being in a group of those people, they told me about you, and I live close by, so I wanted to come check it out.
I see.
Yeah.
So how long have you been interested in the general non-dual
About a
subject?
year.
About a year.
Yeah, started getting interested last year. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
How did that happen for you? How did that get
Uh,
started?
well, I've been doing, just the regular path of, Buddhism for a couple years, and just got introduced to non-duality from a friend. And it just seemed like that was what I was actually seeking, was that truth that was a little bit more obscure in the Buddhism that I was. Theravada Buddhism didn't even really touch it. So yeah, I just became really interested in that and found out about Francis, and then started going to retreats with him. And yeah, that's where I'm at now.
I see.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions remaining regarding all of this?
I think it's maybe more about getting, like, there's been glimpses of truth, and there's been usually a feeling that comes with it, a feeling of peace. And then it just seems kind of fleeting, where it's kind of like this, it hides, and then it feels like I need to re-attain it or something. And it just doesn't seem like, I guess it's more about like becoming more established in day-to-day life, engaging with others. And it just seems like there's this kind of back and forth between ignorance and understanding that's happening right now. So it's kind of yeah.
My guru, this fellow, Ramesh Balsekar, he called that the flip-flop.
Yeah, sounds right.
And so there is this flip into this experience of unity. And then there's the flop into the experience of isolation, of independence is the word that I prefer. The sense that I'm an independent entity.
Yeah.
And it is that quality of independence, which, of course, is the suffering. And the quote bliss of the connection of that feeling of being part of that essence is phenomenally preferable to the suffering that is attendant to.
Yeah, I think that, then the mind just seeks like that. I think I've realized it's more about like attaining an understanding versus a feeling. The feeling maybe is a side effect of understanding. So when this feeling of unity or peace is not there, it's still this. It's still it's just maybe there's still something in me that's like, well, I was fully understanding, and that feeling of peace would be there.
Right. Actually, the peace is there.
Yeah.
What would be absent is the suffering. So that experience of peace is dependent upon the presence of the suffering. That's the curious thing in all of this. That it is imagined that the sage is experiencing the peace all the time, that the seeker experiences. But that is not the case. It is not an experience of peace. Because any experience contains the seed of its opposite. Always. I mean, anything in phenomena is dualistic. It will flip.
Mm-hmm.
So the peace that is being pointed to in the term understanding or whatever is transcendent of that flip-flop. It isn't the flip all the time. It is the absence of the flip-flop entirely, which is non-experiential in nature.
So where does suffering, like suffering still occurs or no, it doesn't?
No, there is neither the presence of suffering nor the absence of suffering.
Mhm.
Of experience. I mean, the suffering simply does not arrive.
Yeah. And that's just due to mind identification, I guess.
We get into a question of linguistics, language, and so it depends entirely on what you mean by mind.
Mm-hmm.
The term I use in this teaching is the false sense of authorship, or the FSA. And I use that term because it's new in any previous association, like mind or ego or any of the rest of those terms, which you now have to go kind of unlearn or disconnect to
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mm-hmm.
So the false sense of authorship is this quality that you feel of being an independent entity, that you're responsible for shit. It's up to you to make it happen. That somehow you have the power to manipulate, and that inherently that power, not that you were given the power to do something, but you inherently have it,
Mm-hmm.
that it's yours as a quality of this independence. So it's that which we're pointing to in this teaching as being the root of the suffering, or ignorance in another.
I guess there has always been a little bit of confusion around I don't know if you use consciousness as a term or no.
Sure.
Okay. Like there's clearly like, you know, a separate self is an illusion. It's not actually deciding, it's not like the thoughts are coming from consciousness, right? So the actions are coming from consciousness, right? So then I get into this thing where it's like, even if the separate self is an illusion, like there's still things being done, there's still things happening, and like you know, is me choosing to be here an act of the separate self or the act of consciousness? You know, like I don't really know that.
Well, I mean, you're homing in on the crux of the matter, absolutely. And so there is obviously this quality of existence that we've given the name Travis.
Mm-hmm.
So Travis has properties. Travis has qualities. Travis has characteristics. And the more fundamental question is not whether Travis exists, but what is Travis? Is Travis an independent thing that God or consciousness or totality has made and then set loose to bounce around independently of the rest of the existence? Or is Travis an aspect of this consciousness, part of the wholeness, an expression of the source or unity or consciousness.
Mm.
If so, then Travis's decisions, we linguistically say, Travis decided, Wayne didn't decide. But fully with the understanding that all that is happening is a movement of consciousness. Every thought, every action, every decision is all part of the totality. So this is the difference between the, quote, understanding of who we are as part of the wholeness versus the illusion of independence, of being a separate, independent thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where it gets tricky is we are obviously separate from one another. We have to be separate from one another in order to interact, to have a relationship, to talk.
Mm-hmm.
That separate, if we were absolutely the undifferentiated. So that's really kind of a better term. We are differentiated, and we perceive this differentiation as separateness.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not, in fact, independent. And that is the illusion out of which the suffering arises. And it is not something that we have messed up as an act of our own. It is part of the movement of the universe, of consciousness, of source. That at around the age of 2, humans, these human organisms, develop this false sense of being independent.
That's just why they just have it. It's part of the game. Yeah.
It's part of what is.
Yeah.
And I mean, you look around. I mean, you verify this for yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And once you're aware of this, and you have, I don't know, do you have children?
No.
No. Well, if you have nieces, nephews around the age of 2 years old, you can identify the moment, the point at which this occurs and the suffering begins. The pain is converted to suffering. The suffering is that this pain shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
That there's this additional quality that I should be able to make this different.
Mm-hmm.
This reality shouldn't be as it is. That's the suffering. The pain is, I don't like this. This hurts.
Mm-hmm.
This sucks. And that's the state of the 1.5-year-old. And that's the state of the sage as well. I mean, stuff still sucks. There's pain. There's grief. There's difficulty in life because that's a component of life, pleasure and pain. But the suffering is absent in both the child under 2 and in the sage. Sense of independence that generates the sense of things should be other than they are.
Yeah, I think there was this expectation that, some of the conditioned like habits that I have would maybe, they're still there. And like that's just what is, I guess, right? Or is there
Yeah, obviously.
There's some idea that like they would like gradually fade away.
Yeah, that is the fantasy that we all subscribed to in the beginning, that we will become perfect. We will become saints.
Mm-hmm.
And I make a distinction between a saint and a sage.
Mhm.
The saint is about behavior. The saint's behavior corresponds to the highest standards of the group. That's what a saint is.
Yeah.
And saints still can suffer. You read the writing of, all of these saints, and they often are filled with suffering. Even though everybody else is saying that they're saints because their behavior is so good. But they feel that they shouldn't be as they are. As long as that quality is still there, the fact that they've been constructed to act in a way that corresponds to everybody's expectations and standards really has nothing to do with the internal landscape of feeling the sense of being independent, which produces the suffering. I should be better. I shouldn't have had that thought, that nobody saw, but I saw it. I had a doubt about God. I had a doubt about this. I had a sexual thought about, that Sister Teresa, or whatever. I should not have. That quality is still attendant to saints, but it does not arise in sages. But their behavior can be horrible. Truly. I mean, because it's not about behavior.
It's just a freedom of expression, I guess.
Well, it is simply that there's no secondary involvement. That comes with the claim that I was the author of that thing that I did. And therefore, if I were the author, if I made it happen, my decision was 100% mine, then guilt is inevitable. Pride is inevitable. Look what I've done.
I'm trying to think the question out loud. So I was laid off from my job like a month ago, and
Yes.
there's this like there's this I don't want to work. And there's this understanding that it's going to be fine regardless. Like I could just never work again. It could happen, and it would be okay. But there is this like understanding, or there's just like this part of living in this relative world that like I need to get a job. I'm trying. I don't actually know what the question is. It's just like a matter of like, I guess that's just like just a relative thing that's been on my mind. It's like I actually don't know what the question is, but it's just something I'm struggling with right now. Just trying to figure out the next step.
My experience in life is that sometimes the next step isn't clear in this moment, and may not be clear in the next moment. It may be, a week down the line or a month down the line, but always something happens. Always. And you know this from your own life experience. Always something happens.
Yeah, that's what there's like this, I've kind of just been sitting back, just being patient, like kind of just waiting for something. And
so that is what is happening now. The sitting back and the patience is happening. And when the rent comes due and there's no money, then the sitting back and the patience may become more difficult. And when the sheriff's knocking on the door and wanting to throw your shit on the front lawn, then the patience becomes more difficult. And you may be moved to walk into the Starbucks or the McDonald's and do something so that you so you don't have to live out on the streets. Maybe. Or maybe you move into a box down on the corner and go, well, God will provide. And then somebody throws, money in your cup and you can eat. We'll see what happens. We don't know. But something will happen. As long as you're drawing breath, something will happen.
I think I wanted to use this time of being laid off to like understand more. That seems what it was calling for making the next move.
No, we'll see whether that happens. I mean, you're here, you're not working today.
Yeah. I've heard Francis say that like it's a choice to believe to be a separate consciousness. Like there's some sort of autonomy there almost.
You'll have to talk to him about his teaching. I know absolutely nothing about it.
Okay.
I can only talk about the pointers that I use, not the pointers that somebody else uses.
Was it a choice to not believe you're the author of what's happening?
I mean, you can call it a choice if you like, but it just begs the question of what makes us choose.
Yeah.
What makes us choose one thing rather than another?
That's what yeah.
Do we have autonomy of choice? Are we the author of our choice? That's the question. We make choices.
So it's just grace, or like to stop thinking you're the author, or to understand is not even a choice. It's not a choice it just happens.
I would take out the just. It happens. It doesn't just happen. Linguistically, it's interesting. We say when we are not making it happen, it just happens. We diminish it. What's important is what we make happen. What the universe makes happen is secondary. It just happens. It happens as part of the functioning of the universe. It's extraordinary, this happening. It's unbelievable, this happening. The complexity of us is the happening of us, of our bodies and our physicality, our minds, our movements. All of it is unbelievable. This happening is extraordinary. And one aspect of that happening may be a recognition of what is.
It already is.
Yeah. Very much so.